Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hey, the lovey. How's my boy? You're
Doing
not going to
good. I'm
fight with
just,
me this week, are you?
I don't know if you start it.
You started it last week.
Yeah, it's fine. No worries. Um,
So
all
I wanted to talk about Jiffy Dinners for busy people.
right, start with Jiffy Dinners, and I'm going to talk about a few other things.
Okay. So anyway, here's a real Jiffy one. You take this is what I've been doing almost every night.
Mm-hmm.
You take like already cooked chicken, whatever and you take You take a plate, take Chinese vegetables, chop up an onion, chop up some garlic. Then you take one of those spring mix
Yeah.
salads, your organic spring mix, and you throw it on the plate, and you just you throw it into the microwave, like the Chinese vegetables. Of course, you have the bean sprouts and you have the water chestnuts and the bamboo shoots,
Mm-hmm.
and fresh mushrooms are good. Just wash up some fresh mushrooms. Oh, by the way, a friend of mine who's very much into cooking told me that a lot of times these spring mixes that you get that says they've been washed, that they're pre-washed and ready to eat. She says you really need to soak them for a little, just a few, just like a minute in soapy water, and then drain them and wash them very well with clear water. The soap washes right off. She says because even though they say they're washed 3 times, they can still carry bugs.
Oh, I know that. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
So I didn't. So she told me about that because they used to eat them right out of the box. So anyway, so then you take it, throw it into the microwave for just 3 minutes. Take it out, pour olive oil on it, and spices and soy sauce, and there you have it. A whole meal in just 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Actually,
And
actually five. Actually five.
thank you, everybody, for listening to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. And Mother has cooking ideas. If you have
Oh
any more yeah.
yes, salmon. Now you can take frozen raw salmon
So we're
and
still doing this.
very quickly. It's still wrapped up in the plastic in the plastic. Run warm water over it to basically unfreeze it a little bit, and then open up the packet. Open up the plastic wrap, blot it in paper towel, throw it on a just throw it on a throw it on a plate with spinach, with frozen spinach and mushrooms, and I like my onions and garlic, and throw it into the microwave for 4 minutes, maybe five.
So do you watch any cooking shows on YouTube?
Sometimes, yeah, I find them. People find watching cooking shows very relaxing.
I feel the same. I like watching people cut up onions and do other stuff, and it was very enjoyable. I was just curious if you watched it also.
Yeah,
Um,
I used to watch Rachel Ray, and the way that she diced up garlics
mhm.
was that I've tried like those garlic thingies. You just put it in
Yeah,
and you
I know you're
yeah
talking about.
yeah. The problem is washing them afterwards, like trying to get all the garlic out of it. It's ridiculous. So what I do is I take a garlic. You take the blunt side of a large vegetable knife, like with these huge vegetable knives. Beat it. Hit it once to to squash it a little bit, and then you can peel off the husk, and then take the garlic, take the knife, the vegetable knife, and chop, 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 chop. I just keep chopping, chop, 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 for maybe not even a minute, just a few seconds. Chop it up real fine, and it does a better job.
Interesting.
And you
Yeah,
don't have all that mess good because when it comes to cleaning it up, you can just wash off the knife and that's it. Rather than these garlic, it's called a garlic press. These garlic presses, that the little pieces you can just it's a struggle to get the little pieces of garlic out of it and actually wash it properly.
it's funny you mentioned that because I have a little gadget. It's like a dicer, and it's an automatic dicer. Where you put the vegetable in or the fruit, whatever you want to dice, and you put it down. It has to like put in a little pressure, and it goes through this like grid of blades, and it's great. But to clean it out, like I just put it in the dishwasher. It does a good job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it more efficient than just taking the vegetable and going tap 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 tap?
It's more efficient because it just saves me time, and it's like I
Ah,
know it's evenly spaced. Like because I don't know, I'm really bad at dicing things.
mhm.
It's funny. I was just watching a documentary on Netflix about this website called Ashley Madison. Have you heard about it?
No, what is it?
So Ashley Madison is a website that is basically um it's for married people that want to have an affair.
Mm.
And oh, the story gets intense. It basically it started out in like 2000, 2001,
Mm-hmm.
and by 2015 it had like subscribers all over the world, and it got hacked. And the people that hacked Ash
Is this for
Madison,
real? This is
yes.
not fiction. This is for real.
No, this is for real.
Oh my gosh. Uh-huh.
They they said that that you better shut down your whole operation, or we're going to release everybody, all the users.
Yeah.
And they released the obviously they try Ashley Madison tried to stop this from happening, but they couldn't prevent it, and they released the users, and all these users found out, and unfortunately some people even committed suicide from it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Mm,
what happened
mm.
was like they found out that most of the users were men, and like almost all of the women were robots or people that were working for the company, just typing, responding.
Oh my God. But but I know that many years ago when I first started um getting on the internet, when it became more user friendly, you might say,
Yeah.
I remember receiving some advertisements um about websites for married people who wanted to fool around outside their marriage. And I just looked, shook my head and said, no, I've seen everything.
Yeah. It I'm curious enough to ask, like, did you know of any people when you were younger that would cheat on their spouses or cheat on their boyfriends or girlfriends?
Well, in my day, a boyfriend and a girlfriend were, now when we think about a boyfriend and a girlfriend, we think about people that are actually living together.
Mm-hmm.
In my day, in high school, and every now and then you had the couples that were living together. But the majority of people, for the majority of us, a girlfriend and boyfriend was somebody that you were just steadily dating,
Mm-hmm.
that you weren't necessarily, living with, and in many cases, not even having sex with, because um, when I was in college, even during, this was the advent of the sexual revolution, there were still a lot of college students who felt very strongly about not having sex outside of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
They just,
And
as a matter of conviction, also as a matter of safety.
and those were the nerds, I think.
No, no,
No?
yeah, no, not necessarily. You had some
Okay.
really cool kids who just, they just they didn't want to they felt it was too risky, basically, that the
Interesting.
risks far outweigh the whatever
So
pleasure
you
you
didn't
might
so
have.
let's just get back on track then. So you didn't know of anyone cheating on anyone or being unfaithful this your whole life, with all the people you met. Because I know when I was,
Mm-hmm.
a teenager, I knew one guy who, cheated on his girlfriend. And when we found out, we all just like ostracized him. But I'm
Let's
just
put it this way:
surprised.
if I had, I mean, um, in our circle of married people, every now and then you heard about somebody, but people had a tendency to, if there were more people that were doing it, they kept it very private, or you would hear about a couple that got divorced, you would wonder why, and then you found out later, oh yeah, because one of them was cheating on his or her spouse. There was, oh gosh, there was one incident of let's put it this way. When your father and I heard about this couple, we couldn't believe it. I mean, both the husband and the wife were tremendously overweight people. I mean, tremendously overweight.
Okay.
And we heard about this couple that they had been cheating on each other. And I was like, I said to your father, who would want? And your father says to me, not who, how?
I wasn't there one person, like a high profile person back in the day, that cheated on his wife, and then his wife got a PI, and then also got I wouldn't say a hitman, but someone to rough him up.
You mean in the Jewish community?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All
But
right.
then again,
Because
let's put it this way, I had enough on my plate. Can I know how raising you kids? And that
yes,
includes your father, because he,
he had his own personality.
because
Yeah.
yeah. Let's put it this way. Um, uh, he helped a little bit around the house, but not a lot. It was mostly, cooking dinner, driving carpools, things like this was mostly my gig. And then I was also working part time, and I had enough on my plate that I didn't have to. I felt I had enough in my own personal life. I didn't have to worry about other people.
Well, I think maybe it's because because cheating is something that maybe it's shameful to be caught on both ends. So people kind of kept things more on the reps. But I remember growing up with a lot of, for me, growing up, it felt like it was a lot of couples that there was physical abuse.
Unfortunately, yeah, it was a very, probably still is. It was a problem in the
Yeah.
Jewish community, and also in Israel. Um, I spoke to a woman who was a very well known therapist in Israel and published a number of books. And she told me the majority of her clients were women who were being horribly abused, but because of the economic situation in Israel, they couldn't get out of their marriages because it was very, very difficult for a single, for a divorced woman with kids to make it financially on her own. And as a matter of fact, there was an organization. I remember your father and I went to this dinner to support this organization. And the purpose of this organization was to give financial aid to women who were victims of abuse so that they could get out of their marriages. And this was in Israel. And then there was the creation of the Kana organization, um, for abused women. So the abused, that was a basically, it was a support group where abused women could go and basically meet with other abused women and basically, find out what resources were available to them. There was also the creation of the House of Ruth. You probably heard of that. I think it's still around today. It's a House of Ruth is a it's a battered woman shelter. Um, Now that you were talking about people cheating, you just jolted my memory. I remember in my parents' conservative temple, the cantor, um, yeah, that the cantor was cheating on his wife. I remember hearing about. I think I was in college at the time. I remember hearing about that through the grapevine. That's why he was fired. And then there was a whole controversy. I remember with one of the Reform temples where the president of the sisterhood was having an affair with, I think, the cantor or something. I mean, what can you say? I mean, people are people,
I,
and
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it's kind of interesting in a way of like how each generation handled the problem. Um, I mean, I don't. now as an adultier adult, I don't hear of any cheating. I just haven't heard of anything.
Mm-hmm.
When I was like a teenager or a young adult, that like when I was like in my early 20s and my late teens, like that's when I really started hearing a lot of drama of
Mm-hmm.
people doing things and whatnot. Um,
I remember
but
when I was teaching Hebrew school. I was teaching 12-year-old kids, like sixth grade, seventh grade, and we were studying Jewish marriage, ceremony, Jewish marriage ceremony, and the Jewish perspective on marriage and everything. And one of the kids in the class actually brought up the idea of cheating. And I said, look, I said, what's the sense of getting married if you're gonna cheat? I said, I said, don't get married.
yeah,
If you've got the sense, you just don't get married. Because what's the sense? The whole purpose of getting married is that you're you're dedicating your life to this one special person, and you're hoping to dedicate your life and spend the rest of your life with this person. And so, if you're going to do stuff like that, you know, if you know you've got those tendencies, and do everybody a favor, just don't get married to begin with. I think it's I remember during the 80s, there was a lot of divorce during the 80s because you had all these psychologists and therapists that were, how can I say it, encouraging people to, rather than stick with marriages and solve their problems, they said, you and your children, the children will be better off if you were happily divorced than being in a, miserable marriage. And there was like a whole milieu of go out and find yourself. And it was like, it was called it was actually called my niece um my sister told me that my niece would come home from school and say, mommy, it's the epidemic. That it was another kid in the class whose parents were getting divorced, another kid in the class, another kid in the class, another kid in the class. And she would come home and tell him, mommy, it's the epidemic. That's what she would call it, the epidemic. And it was. And um I just remember it, the numbers of people during the 80s and early 90s was that were getting divorced was astronomical. Um, and
were any of them
then it
with
was
just
during
cause?
then it was during the some, yeah, some yes, like
Like what?
but then well, usually there was this. It got to the point where psychologists then in the mid 90s came out and said, look, this is, there were many talk show psychologists that came and said, this is really not good. This is getting ridiculous. So people are not really putting forth an effort to really work on their marriages. And it was affecting a lot of kids at the time. So then what happened was the study in the 80s, the so-called studies about, that the children will be happier if they see their parents happily divorced rather than, miserably married. Then the psychologists came up with another study in the mid 90s, like maybe it's better, even if you are in a miserable marriage, to stick with it and see it through. We think it might be better for the kids. And all of a sudden, we're changing their minds.
You know what's interesting, by the way? I just checked the divorce rate in the U.S. for 2020 up to 2021,
Uh-huh.
and the divorce rate is, from what I can tell, it's looking at this. I think it says it goes women's adjusted divorce rate from 1970 to 2000, and then
Mm-hmm.
2008, 2019, and 2021 U.S. Census, and
Mm-hmm.
2021. All these information. The divorce
Impact
rate, the
or
divorce rate is today less than it was in 1970.
yeah, that was, I remember, the 1970s and 80s. That's when, like, that's when the whole idea was it's better to go out and find yourself and type thing. And yeah, this one talk show psychologist put it very bluntly. She says there are three reasons that are very serious why a person should get divorced. She goes, either one of the couple cheating, because especially that was during the time of the AIDS epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
When that happened, that's when people said, "Oh gosh, you you know if your spouse is cheating, you could wind up with a fatal disease." Drug use, that can be fatal. And what did she put? And abuse. She said if it's not one of those three reasons, then other problems you might have in your marriage can be solved, can be fixed with a good marriage counselor or a good spiritual advisor or somebody like that.
Well, I have a question. It seems like you mentioned a couple of times about women divorcing to find themselves, and you did not divorce, but did you ever find yourself, or do you have an answer to that, or do you have a rebuttal?
Something, if you can't find yourself in marriage, in the context of marriage, you'll never find yourself.
Can you elaborate?
I've seen these people. I've seen people. I've heard about them through their ex-spouses who in the 80s decided, oh, they needed to go off and find themselves type thing, and they divorced. And one person in particular told me that when last time she saw her ex-spouse, he admitted that I think we talked about this one time, the divorce was all his fault. It was a big mistake, and he would have been better off sticking with the marriage and working it through. He would have been happier. He never remarried. He never found the happiness he was looking for, and he admitted to her that he's just miserable. He has gone through most of his life just being miserable. There was an old saying, don't go looking for happiness, it'll only make you miserable. I mean, really, happiness comes from within. And like I said, unless you've got a spouse that's into drug abuse or is cheating on you or is abusive, if you're having problems with like communication, some people saying, oh, that they fell out of love. That was another thing. There were a lot of people that were getting divorced at the 10-year mark because they said, oh, that they had fallen out of love. And I was reading a very interesting article about this. And the psychiatrist was saying that the 10-year marriage mark is very critical in that by the 10th year, the Romeo and Juliet, teenage romance, has worn off. And you're coming into another stage of your relationship where it's more devotion than romantic love. And he said, and when you're going through that transition, when you're going through any transition, there's going to be a void. And many people mistake this void for, falling out of love. And he said, if these couples if they've got a good spouse, and if they have a good person that they're married to, that's not into drug abuse, not abusive, not having a love affair, these couples are better off riding the wave through that transitional period, and then they'll break into that second stage of their relationship, and that second stage of their relationship will make their marriage a lot deeper and a lot more meaningful.
Did you experience that?
Oh, your father and I were always romantically in love.
I know him, but I'm saying, did you ever experience that and go through that with Tati and work through it, and then feel like you finally broke through something?
We did, yeah, we did. I remember your father going through the stage where, especially when he had to switch careers, and he felt like he needed to find himself. But he said to me, he says, what I know that I know, there's one thing that I do want. I want to stay married. He says, but right now I feel I need to find myself. But he says, it was during when people were leaving marriages, they wanted to find themselves, and he wanted to find himself too. But he said, but he was smart enough, he was wise enough to know, like I said, if you can't find yourself in marriage, you're never going to find yourself. So he said the one thing he knew he wanted was his marriage. That was the thing he wanted. And he says, don't worry. He says he wants to try, maybe going back to school a little bit, taking courses, doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that, trying this, trying that, professionally. And I said, sure. I said, it's okay. I said, I think now's a good time for it. He wasn't 40 yet. He was like in his mid-30s. And I said, I think that was a great time for it. And besides the fact that, he when he was switching careers, when your grandfather sold the store, and this was the place your father worked for years and years and years, and now had to break into another line of work. So I at that point, so your father was very smart. The first thing he did when he got his walking pay, when Pop sold the store, was to go down to social services. He applied for everything. He put his unemployment in, food stamps. I was on WIC. We've actually made out better than when he was working. It was really funny. So I was working part-time too. And I said, don't worry, Pop, your grandfather, said, don't worry, that he'll continue to pay our medical insurance, which helped a lot. And also your grandparents helped us with the house. So that helped a lot too. So we had two big expenses we didn't have to worry about. And between me working part-time and your father also, while he was taking these different courses and looking into different types of careers, was also working part-time in different, various jobs. And and so far, it was we made ends meet. It was okay.
Did you ever feel
But your father was very smart. Your father was very wise about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he knew that when he was going through this stage of finding himself, he knew very well that, God forbid, to leave his marriage would be the worst thing he could possibly do, and he knew that.
Yeah. Was there ever a thing where, I guess, because you said he was taking courses, was there ever like moments where he felt like he had an aha moment and he was going to run with it and then it just didn't work out?
He tried sales because
Why? It's good for you.
he tried sales and
It just didn't work out for some odd reason. We have no idea. I guess it's always going to be a mystery.
I don't know what it is about sales. Some people are just amazing. I've seen some salespeople who are amazingly successful.
Yeah.
And some people I know I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah.
I could never do it. One of your aunts, though.
Oh yeah.
You have a couple of your aunts on your father's side that became very successful with sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
The funny thing is that one of your aunts became one of the richest of your father's siblings, and she dropped out of college after one semester.
It's so
and
funny.
Her parents were very upset. And what happened was she got a job behind the cosmetic counter at Revlon in one of the department stores. And Revlon noticed that there were certain hours of the day that their sales just skyrocketed at this one particular makeup counter. So they wanted to look and see who was there at those hours. And it turned out to be one of your aunts. And they offered her a job as an executive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was one with one semester of college who dropped out.
Well, like I said, everything, it's just up to Hashem, really. It's just like different strokes, different folks you're trying to do versus what you're able to succeed in doing. It's just Hashem wants you in a place and position for a certain period of time. That's where he's going to stick you.
I always felt that, and I told you kids this, although all of you went to college because you wanted to.
Yeah.
I did not push any of you to really go into college. I told you guys the only reason you have for going to college is if you are interested in a profession that requires a college degree. If you are not interested in a profession that requires a college degree, don't go, because you'll spend a lot of money and wind up with a lot of courses and a totally unmarketable degree. I said, instead, try different jobs. Try different jobs, see where what's a good fit, or go to a trade school if you're interested in some particular trade. But it looks like all of you obviously were interested in degree, in professions that required college degrees, and you all did it. You all decided to go, but on
Yeah.
your own, not because I pushed you into going.
Well, I mean
But
that was.
my generation, we didn't have my generation. We were all pushed. We were all pushed into going to college
Well.
because many of our parents never had that opportunity.
Mhm.
And during the 60s and the 70s, scholarships were amazingly available. There was a lot of financial help. It was, and so these parents who grew up during the 20s and 30s and who struggled so much and suffered so much, it's like, wow, I want my kid to go to college. I'm telling you, we were pushed.
Well, I think nowadays it's funny because people say that my generation was pushed to go into college. Not us as a family, but the generation
Mm-hmm.
definitely got pushed into college. And now people racked up a ton of debt in, like what you said before, degrees that don't really matter, situations that don't make a difference. And I look back, I'm like, I have 3 degrees. I have associates, a bachelor's, and a master's.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely pushed my limits and did my best, but there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a difference between being academically achieving and actually
Mm-hmm.
working in the workforce and having to figure that out and learn, you know, on how to do that. And that's the challenge I'm trying to figure out because I'm great at school. School's fantastic. I was in school
Mm-hmm.
for 26 till I was 26 years old. I was in school. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I got out of it, it was just a challenge after challenge of trying to make these jobs, just trying to figure things out. Um, but yeah, it comes. I mean, it really just depends on what you want to do. And besides sales, what else was Tati trying to get into? It didn't work out.
He went into computer science, and in those days, computer it was ever hear of COBOL?
I think so.
Okay. That was the early computer programs during the 1980s,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to make your own program these computer cards. If there was one teeny little error, no matter how small it was, the program wouldn't work. And the
Yeah.
problem too is not everybody, you would imagine if you're studying computer science, everybody in the class should have a computer. Not in the 80s, and laptops hadn't been invented yet. There was one computer for the whole class of maybe 15 to 20 people. And after you typed out your program and you thought it was perfect, you stood in line waiting to feed it into the computer. And you waited and you waited and you waited.
Yeah. I mean, computers weren't really a big thing until I would say, in 6th grade. Did
It took a while for
computers
them to make them user friendly. It really did.
Well, it's what I noticed with technology in general. I think we might have talked about this in a previous episode, where at first it's going to be clunky, but eventually they'll iron out the kinks. And that's what like Tati always like told me when like I saw something new and like, oh, let's get this, let's get that. He's like, I'm gonna give it a year and then I'll get something. And sure enough, like at one point there was like some piece of technology, I can't remember what it was, and I wanted to get it, I wanted to like be the first one. He's like, just wait it out. And sure enough, like 2-3 years later, something was 10 times better, more faster, and everything was like also 10 times cheaper.
Well, I remember getting during the 1980s when Atari came out, getting a call from a computer salesperson and she said, to sell a personal use computer. So I said to her, how much is it? She goes, $1,000. I said, what does it do? I said, well, I said to her, well, listen, well, I said, as far as I'm concerned, what I'm looking for in a computer is to make my shopping list, to have my carpool list, to have my schedule there. Because well, our computers don't do that. I said, well, what does your computer do for $1,000? Play games. I said, for $1,000, I'll go to a store and buy a bunch of box games. I don't need a computer for $1,000 computer for games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about like the computers that I had growing up, where like the internet also was just brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't anything like we used to get internet off the with a CD, and get like the AOL like 90 minute 90 whatever. But what I was gonna say was kind of funny was, I remember before I went to Israel in 2006, I wanted to get a flash drive, and for $30 in 2006, I got a flash drive for 523 megabytes. I don't think you understand that. So just to put that in
Is that
perspective,
a lot or a little?
okay. So so there is there's something called kilobytes, megabytes, kilobytes, and then there's also gigabytes. Um, so everything has it's like 1,000 kilobytes to 1,000 megabytes to 1,000 gigabytes. So I got a 523 megabyte flash drive for
So,
$30.
so the megabyte is the bigger one.
Megabyte is bigger than a kilobyte, which is smaller than a gigabyte.
Okay.
Okay.
I think.
Just
Right.
just just bear with me. I
Okay.
have a 523 megabyte
Mm-hmm.
flash drive with $30 2006. Today, you can get a 32 gigabyte flash drive, which according to my calculations, let's put this calculator in. Um uh so 32 gigabytes is 32,000 kilo megabytes. Okay. And I got 532. So 532 megabytes is maybe, I would say, 2% of what nowadays you can offer. And I spent $30 on it when I can get a 32 gigabyte flash drive now for about $12. It's crazy fast.
Yeah.
Crazy fast.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like, I think 18 years ago.
But is the we talk about gigabytes, you're talking about it. How can I say it? Storage. It's about storage.
Yes, this is all
Storage
storage.
capacity.
Correct.
Okay, that much I know. Hey, it only took me 3 years to learn how to turn on our computer and shut it down.
I know
Come on now.
you're just the next Bill Gates. Um,
Give
okay,
credit where credit is due.
for sure. All right, we're almost out of time.
Okay,
I'll talk to you later and have
okay,
a wonderful
sweetheart.
Shabbos. All
You
right,
have a great Shabbos. Love you.
love you.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.